Gwich Akara, and welcome back to the Mórrígan Academy podcast, where we explore the myths, magic and mysteries of Ireland's great battle goddess. I am Lora O'Brien. I am the founder of the Mórrígan Academy, and I have been a priest of the Mórrígan for over 20 years and an Irish pagan and witch for over 30 years. So I've been doing this work for a very long time here in Ireland. I'm based in County Waterford. I've lived here all my life. On the island, not in Waterford. I've kind of moved around a bit, but it was very difficult for me to get accurate information on the Mórrígan back when I was starting. Accurate information on anything to do with Irish paganism, native Irish spirituality, anything like that. The market was so saturated with Celtic neo-pagan nonsense that it was very, very difficult, very confusing, and I'm sure a lot of you have been in the same situation. But somehow you have made your way to the Mórrígan. So today's episode is one that I've been looking forward to because it's another question that I get asked all the time, and often kind of whispered in private messages or asked nervously at the end of a class or presentation. And it is, what does the Mórrígan actually want from me? And I get it. When you feel her presence, maybe for the first time, it can be really intense. You might feel called or challenged or even completely unsettled, honestly. And people often worry that they're not doing enough, or they're doing it wrong, or that they'll be punished if they don't answer in some dramatic way, or they get worried when the Mórrígan shows up or seems to show up and then fecks off and they don't hear anything from her. So all of these are very, very common reactions. But what I'd like you to do is take a breath, and we're going to unpack this together. So first things first, she's not handing out to-do lists. There is no kind of clear direction from the Mórrígan like that. She will put a task in front of you, point you in the right direction and expect you to figure it out. There's no set list of requirements to honour the Mórrígan. She's not standing over you with a clipboard checking that you've burned the right incense or made the right kind of offering. She's a feckin' sovereignty goddess. And I mean, first and foremost, she's a goddess, so she is busy. So who the hell would have time for all of that, right? But she is also a sovereignty goddess. And that means that she does actually value personal responsibility, action and truth. So when we're asking questions like, what does she want from me? What we're really asking is, how do I respond to her presence in my life in a way that's respectful, meaningful and aligned with who she is? So first of all, we're going to look at what the source texts tell us. We do have a previous episode which looks at which stories to study so that you can understand the Mórrigan's mythology. So definitely go back and listen to that episode. There is also a resource that you can download in the show notes, which will go through some of her mythology. So check that out for sure. But just briefly, in Táin Bó she confronts Cuchulainn and initially offers her support, which he refuses. And he has just refused a sovereignty goddess. He is out of alignment as a leader. And she warns him that his arrogance will cost him. And it does. It really does. Over and over again. In Cath, she doesn't just fight in the battle, she prophesies, she calls people to action, and she speaks powerful Rosk poetry at the end, which literally is shaping the future of Ireland. Then we also see her as the Bive in a few of the different stories, either a sister or one of her associated names foretelling the fall of kings. So what do these stories have in common? They show us a goddess who values truth, action, sovereignty, courage and transformation. So what does she want from you? Maybe she wants you to live those values, perchance. She might push you to speak up when it would be easier to stay silent. Use your voice. Voice and noise are a very powerful part of the Mórrigan's magic. How she creates change. She might challenge you to take responsibility for something that you've been avoiding, personal sovereignty. She might call you to learn your own history and step into leadership, or to say no when everyone around you is saying yes. seeing the truth, really seeing the depths and the breadths of what's actually happening in the present, certainly, but also the influences from the past and where this is going to end up in the future. This is her prophecies. The Mórrígan doesn't usually call people to comfort. She calls us to clarity, to action, to stand in your own power, even when that's terrifying. Think of the edge of a battlefield or the eve of a battle, those liminal times when you're facing into a big fight. And it doesn't mean that you need to be getting out there wielding a spear. Not all of us are physically able to do that. That's okay. You don't have to be a warrior to be in service to the Mórrígan. But there are more ways to fight than just physically, okay? There's more ways to fight than just putting your body into the fray. And it's going to look different for each person. For some, it's activism. Sometimes it is putting your body out there in defense of other people, maybe, or to fight and protest for what you and yours need. For others, it's healing trauma, speaking truth, learning your ancestral history. All of those are part of truth telling. It might be starting a business, leaving a relationship, cutting out what isn't working for you, changing careers, or facing your shadow head on. All of these are challenges that I personally have had to face, and that so many of my students, I've taught hundreds and hundreds of students, to facilitate and guide them through their own relationship and connection with the Mórrígan over the last 10, 20 years. And all of these things have been what the Mórrígan has asked or expected of many of these students. And there's always a common fear as well. So like, what if I don't answer her? What if I don't want to work with the Mórrígan? My partner John was in that position and got the call and said no thanks. There's videos on our YouTube channel at the Irish Pagan School which feature him talking about that and his own relationship or non-relationship with the Mórrígan. But for people who have that fear, what I always say is she's not a jealous or a needy goddess. If you're not ready or if this isn't your path, that's fine. She respects sovereignty and you're allowed to say no. But I wouldn't recommend saying no out of fear or laziness. I would really sit down with myself and figure out, is this something that I actually cannot do, that I cannot give? Because the work that is put in front of you by the Mórrígan, by a goddess of strategy and transformation and change, is often the necessary work, either for you or for the people around you. So if you do feel her call and you ignore it, or you just don't want to, then don't be surprised if life starts to get a bit challenging. Not because she's punishing you, but because that call isn't just from her, it's also from you. She has found something relatable in you. Part of you has come to her attention. So there is a part of you that is ready for this. Now, again, you have choice, but there's a part of you perhaps that wants more, that's ready for change, even if you don't know what that's going to look like or feel like. And the Mórrígan is just the one who holds up the mirror and says, you know what needs to be done, now do it. So I know that sounds a little bit mixed up, like, you know, you don't have to, but then things are going to get challenged for you. That's all true. She's complicated. She's complex. I have seen so many different scenarios and everybody is different. But these are patterns that I have seen time and time again. General patterns, overarching strategy. So, Cara, my friend, what does the Mórrígan want from you? She certainly doesn't want rituals that you copied off the internet. She doesn't want endless self-doubt or seeking perfectionism. She wants your integrity. She wants your courage. She wants your truth. She wants you to be living in alignment with your truth, with your sovereignty, to know who you are, what you stand for, and to act on it, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's the offering. That's the devotion. That's the service to the Mórrígan. So if this is something that you've been wrestling with, if you felt that pull but you weren't sure what to do with it, I'd really encourage you to keep listening to the podcast. You can subscribe on Spotify. There's a link in the show notes below. And this podcast and all of our courses are also hosted, of course, at the Mórrígan Academy. There's also a blog over there if you want to dive deeper. There's a load of free resources. There is a private off Facebook group if you want to join the conversation there and learn with like-minded community. So until next time, honour the lore, respect the Mórrígan, and slán go fóill.